Folks, welcome to the Taekcast. Just truly the most special episode. I can't imagine a more special guest than Mr. David Kitchen X himself, the tree master, the seedling. I mean, David, your tree branches have extended so far. It's true. There would be no Taekcast without David Kitchen. I mean, that is certifiably true.
That's true. I also at one point even designed the logo for the Taekcast.
Yes. So if you subscribe to the Taekcast Patreon, Dave did that. And what he did, I mean, he just got the logo that I got made from Fiverr, and then he changed the colors. But it was I was very glad.
Still
No,
counts.
actually, you know what? That's not even true. I hated the logos that they did from Fiverr, and you did it. So actually, the logos are all just from you. It's so truly. No one knows how far your tree branches go until they really start to investigate it, you know?
Yeah, the roots are deep. And I love it. I love seeing just the industry evolve and everyone that's, we're kind of in our little circle now, just thriving outside the nest, having their own baby birds. So it's an honor to be here on the Taekcast. How long have you been doing the Taekcast?
I've been doing this show since 2016, so 8 years. Michael Leone was the very first guest, and you know who the second guest was? Josh Hermsmeyer. Josh Hermsmeyer, and I'm sure I guess Bitcoin would have probably been about $7,000 then or something like that, and he would have been like, I don't know, man, it's a pretty good time to sell. Pretty good time to sell.
Probably cheaper than that in 2016.
That's it gets all cajumbled for me. It's hard to keep straight. So I actually do have some questions for you. Questions that I've always wondered, but just fucking Peter's always interrupting us on this whole cast. It's hard to just sit there and have a man-to-man convo. How did you find DFS, David? Because you're not really a gambler. You're not really a degen. You're a Tim Ferriss guy. So how did you find DFS?
So Ben Pritchett was the guy that first introduced me to DFS, and he just was telling me he was playing this game, and I was like, that sounds kind of scammy. At that point, it was just kind of unheard of. We just had our few leagues that we were in, and then I saw an ad for Draft Street with Matthew Berry's head on it, and I'm like, well, if TMR is endorsing this, then it's legit. And so that's when I started playing on Draft Street. And I've never been if you've listened to any sort of Swolecast, I've never been an analytics guy, but I do enjoy the just the competition and trying to figure out things. Now it's gotten to a point where I don't want to mess with it. It's just let me do my thing, and I don't want to spend 20 hours a week trying to find out game theory for whatever the draft is, the battle royale, whatever the special is, whatever the playoff, even the playoff best ball stuff. Like, it gets me a little overwhelmed. So I don't like to do that. But in the beginning days, what I did was I found someone that was doing player projections, game projections with player projections in them. And nobody else was doing it. There was only like a few sites. Everyone was doing game projections for like old school betting sites.
Right.
But we needed player projections. So I found something. It was like $250 for the year. And then I started merging those projections with like salaries and figuring out like best points per dollar and what the value was, and that's kind of how we started.
Dink's story is even funnier, where some guy just kept emailing him every day saying, who do you think the best pitcher today is? Just irregardless, what pitcher do you think is best today? That's how Dink found out about daily
Yeah,
fantasy.
and that's how I found Dink through the Draft Street chat. I mean, Draft Street back in the day was like where all the OG people played. But when we first started playing, FanDuel also was part of it. When we first started playing, the NBA was on lockdown or lockout, not lockdown.
Lockout.
Yeah. And so the only games that were available were college games. And so like that was like back in the research days where you're just trying to find whatever newspaper clipping you could to
I
figure
was
out
gonna
who was
say the
starting.
kids these days that now I never got the college basketball sickness because I like really hate college basketball. I think it's so boring. I can't do it. But I do remember back in the old Fantasy Insiders days, and we're gonna talk about Fantasy Insiders here in a second. The old Fantasy Insiders days, me and Jordan Case, who lived together at the time, we would get on college football message boards. You know, we'd be like in the Navy college football, the Navy midshipmen would be like, is this a week for the wingback or the fat back? You know, like, you know, we'd be in there trying to figure out like, oh, how's Rakeem Cato's shoulder for Marshall? Is he gonna be good to go? They're you wouldn't even need to do that today. I mean, I
Yeah.
guess maybe if you really grinded like Maction or something, maybe there would be a little bit of edge to be gained, but you'd probably gain more edge, I don't know, creating like a solver for college
Yeah.
basketball, which is it's kind of sad.
Well, there's a lot of people doing their own research. I think that is kind of the fun of it. If you're doing your own it becomes like a side hobby. You know, people collect stamps, they do gardening stuff. You know, if your side hobby is just researching what's going on, you know, then that's good. You know, it kind of gets you connected to the game. I actually listened to JJ's podcast last week with a guy that was into IDP. And I mean, if you've played fantasy, you probably played at least one IDP league in your life. And for me, like it was just not enjoyable because I had all these other stuff. But the way that he described it is like if you like fantasy on one side, you might like it on the other, and it also kind of just lets you know like who the players are. And I was thinking, you know, that is
Yeah,
true because we talk about like on the Swolecast, like we don't know, like, we
we
don't
don't
know who
know.
these guys are. You guys didn't even know who Tier Tart was. So,
Yeah, we didn't even know who Tier Tart
yeah,
was.
I mean, so the only defensive players I really know are like the superstars and then anybody on the Titans. But if you're like in the IDP, you're gonna know like all the players, especially like if you're in like the 6-player IDP, like the like legit IDP stuff, and that's pretty hardcore. But it does keep you connected. And this, I guess, the same
It's too
thing.
hard. It's too hardcore for me. I'd rather
Yeah.
grind like third tier European Championship soccer than that. So you find DFS. What are you doing? What was your job before RG?
I started I basically started a fantasysports.org company. So
Oh,
before
I was employee number 2 of
Fantasy Sports,
fantasysports.org.
yeah. And before that, worked for a company that went around all sorts of places training people how to do like just specific type of Bible software. And so from that, and from my days of having my own landscaping business, and then I was a coach, was supposed to be a teacher, and then basically I was like, I wanted to start something, and my wife was generous enough to let me do that, you know, no kids. And so started fantasysports.org. I think in between that, I wrote a book, or co-authored a book for the app Evernote. I don't know if you remember Evernote, but it
Oh,
was
buddy, we used Evernote. I'm very familiar with Evernote because in college I was on the speech team, and we used Evernote to collect all of our news and shit that we would need.
so there
It
was
was
a
like a whole
trunk.
system. Yeah,
called the Evernote Trunk. And I actually found, I think, Evernote through Tim Ferriss, because he
I
was an
bet you
investor in
did.
it. But there was called a trunk with all these like guides and books, and I wrote one that was actually published, or co-authored one that was actually published there. So I then buy fantasysports.org, and from winnings that I had in draft day, I won a draft day contest, the Worm. Buy fantasysports.org, buy a huge printer, and start printing draft boards.
Draft boards.
Yeah. And by draft boards, we just mean like big pieces of paper that
People don't know that
Uh-uh.
David has about 6 hustles going on at a time.
Yeah.
Is that gonna
But
be is that gonna be hard for you at late round quarterback to just have one hustle at a time?
no, if anything, like I've like the RG days, like I just kind of slimmed it down to when you have kids, the hustles tend to go away. Now I do still like research. I do still like seeing like trends in business.
Oh, you're a
Yeah.
big trends guy.
Yeah,
I would
huge
very
trends
much
guy.
believe that you're a trends guy.
Right. So that's the fantasysports.org thing. Dan Bach finds me, invites me on his podcast. From that podcast, he then says, "Hey, we're thinking about
This is what, Grinders Live,
yeah."
or
He said, "No, this is just his daily fantasy, the Rotogrinders podcast. There was only one DFS.
There was only
podcast.
one DFS podcast. I used to listen to Dan Bach's podcast every morning. He would give you
Yeah,
the NBA plays, the Major League Baseball DFS plays, and Dan was a radio guy. Dan was not even a businessman.
no, he was a stay-at-home dad.
Yes, yeah,
At that time, and hit up Cal and Cam, and they said, "Yeah, go for it." And he kind of started, and that's why I called him the Godfather of DFS, because everyone listened to him back then. And then there was another site, I forget what it's called, but Scott Melwig, Sports 25 to Life, who also then worked with Draft Day after that,
yes.
would write an article the day after or the day before tomorrow.
No, he wrote it on Draft Day, so he would write.
But before that, it was on his own site.
Okay, so Scott Malaweg, who a lot of you guys probably don't even know, I actually got an email from him not that long ago, like COVID times, maybe 2021.
That's 3 years ago, buddy.
In the grand scheme of the things you and I are talking about, though, the things you
Yeah.
and I are talking about are like a decade ago or
Right.
longer. And he was working on the operator side with someone.
Yeah,
for
he
something.
is. He's still doing that. So from that, Dan's like, "Hey, we're thinking about doing this daily show called Grinders Live," and invited me to be the host. The first co-host that I was going to have was going to be Beer Makers Fan. People don't realize that. And then he was the big check guy for FanDuel at the time. And this was going to be sponsored by a new startup called DraftKings. So
Sure.
he could not do the show. So that's when Smiz kind of came on the scene. And so, Smiz and I started doing the Grinders Live for baseball.
The idea that Al Smizzle cares about any of this shit is so funny to me. Like, how was Al Zeidenfeld ever on Grinders Live? Isn't that such like a funny thing to think about? Like, Al, just this like really rich, like he's got it, like family man from California, is like grinding Major League Baseball DFS. It's so funny to me.
Yeah, and he loved. I mean, Al, he loved the notoriety of it all. It wasn't about the money at all to him. He loved being known as Smizzle, and he was the first guy to really start DFS and YouTube too. Like really kind of go after the algorithm for this stuff. And so yeah, did that for a few months. Then I was like, there's nothing else out there besides Rotogrinders. So what if I could start something and was the number 2 site? And that's when connected with Tuttle, with Ben, and then with you.
Well, how did you? So obviously you and Ben go way back, and Ben is like a big college football guy, but
Yeah.
was Tuttle was at Rotogrinders?
He was on like the message boards all the time. And like he wasn't really a known, or he was a known guy, but he wasn't really an on-air talent. But he was starting to crush the
The games.
contest.
Yeah.
And so we had talked, and then I reached out and he was like, yeah, he was doing, some sort of insurance position, I think, at the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the story with Tuttle. And then we started FI and brought on Lofty.
I don't actually remember this because I was writing articles for you at fantasysports.org. Me and Christian Hardy, who if you've been around long enough, you might remember him. I think he's like a big NFT. Well, big. He was in the NFT space for a while. I don't know what those gigs.
Yeah, he was
are
like working
now.
with Moment Ranks, I think.
Yes, and one of the actual NFTs themselves.
Yeah.
But what were you paying me then? I don't even remember. How did you find me? You just found me on Twitter? Let's actually, this will be a good bit. We can read the first DM you ever sent me live on air if I can scroll all the way back.
Yeah.
And this is Dave, this is so long ago that our internal company conversations on in Fantasy Insiders and stuff, it was all on Skype, dude. This is before, not only is this before Discord, this is before Slack.
Yeah.
First message, it only goes back this long. March 9th, 2013. I sent you a message saying, do you have spreadsheets up for tonight? And you said negative. They're put out every day from 4 to 4:30. Wow, this is really good. Maybe I will publish these screenshots sometime. It's really funny. Like basically it's like me not understanding what DFS is, being like sometimes I do really good and then sometimes I do really bad. What's the deal?
That's what you said?
Yes. Yeah, that's what I said. And then later on in April, you're saying, hey, I'll be in SiriusXM in a few hours and we'll be plugging the site. This is fantasysports.org, not Fantasy Insiders, because this is 2014. And you're saying any sort of Pulse article, which I guess is what we were calling the DFS article at the time. You said any sort of article would be great.
I was paying you per article to start on fantasysports.org.
Yeah, this is just very funny. Someday I will screen cap these and I will post these on Twitter. I guess that is probably how you found me. You did probably just find me from Twitter, just from tweeting.
Well, you were the Sports Wonderkind, and you had a lot of personality, and thought that was good. You were young, so I knew you would be cheap. Also good.
Oh yeah.
So it worked out. Yeah, we had some really fun moments during the FI days. I mean, we didn't know what we were doing.
No, we did not.
No, but we.
Well, I mean, look, man, Dave. Not to, and this is, I guess. Let's not jump ahead. Let's not jump ahead in the story. Then we'll get there. So Fantasy Insider starts. What is that conversation like with DB? Is he tilted, or is he like, no, I get it? Like, was Rotogrinders so big then, as the only and even further, not only were they so big, they were fucking raking in money hand over fist because this was in DFS back then. Yeah. If you got an affiliate deal, you earned a portion of that person's rake,
right? Not
just a flat fee.
Yeah.
And Rotogrinders got Sahil's rake back. They got Love's Bases rakes back. I think they had Smizzle's DraftKings rake back. Like, they were making millions a year in rake back, probably easily. Yeah. I remember I used to pay my rent in college with FanDuel rakeback because I got all my buddies to sign up. Yeah. And I would make like $500-600 a month in rakeback just from how fucking generous was that program? I mean, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. But that's when when it went away, stuff hit the fan. So we were never an affiliate company because
Yeah.
all the big guys were already taken, and by then it wasn't even a rev share. It was like first time depositors, and we didn't have that funnel. We just wanted to be known within the space. It wasn't really a Dan thing because he was like he understood, but it was more Cal. And Cal was always like, he was never upset, like ticked off. And I remember there was a story with Crazy Gaby, and they were doing something, I forget what it was, and Dan and I wanted to go off, and Cal said, "Don't," because you never know when those, you just don't want to burn bridges. And I will always remember that because it was just
Very good advice.
yes. And sure enough, Crazy Gaby came back to work for them, but it is sound advice. So he was, he talked, we talked, and the thing was, Smiz was going to be a part of it to start. And there was going to be another guy that's a really big name that was going to be a part of it to start. And so he worked out a deal with Smiz.
Schmieder Schmennings.
No, I'm not going to say who it was. He worked out a deal with Smiz, and Smiz got more money for it, So, and I wasn't mad at Smiz either because he absolutely made the right move. So I think that was always the big pain point for RG, is that they were the number one site and the site where all these experts would come on. But I think I was the first one to kind of jump ship. But if you had any sort of following or personality, you would just go and start your own thing and then try to take your buddies with you. I mean, there was, the Fantasy Shane stuff where he got a lot of guys paid because he tried to have like a coup.
He did have a coup. Draft cheat jumped off a boat, man.
Well, draft cheat. I think Manny was a part of that. But he got a lot of the guys that stayed at RG raises because he had to, But yeah, that's how it started with FI. But we were always cordial with the RG guys, and I knew that FI could never beat RG. But if we could be number 2 in a space that was rapidly growing, that'd be good enough.
Yeah, I mean, look, the number 5 site in DFS right now is probably making pretty good money, right?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, definitely. And
so basically, though, what happened from my vantage point to set it this in time, this is like way before Ethan Gate, right?
Yeah.
By the time
2017.
We were already done in 2017. Fantasy Insiders had already closed by Ethan Gate. So we have to talk about the optimizer.
Or it was 2016. Ethan Gate was 2016 because that set the table for a bad 2017.
Yeah. So the first optimizer available was done at fantasyinsiders.com.
Yeah.
The very first publicly accessible optimizer. And not that people had not been using optimizers before. I mean, Bales wrote about this in like one of those like fantasy football for smart people books or whatever. Because there were always player projections available for football that you could have found. Not for baseball or basketball. Although, how bad did Basketball Monster fumble the bag? Basketball Monster, they could have been.
They didn't even have any interest. So people that don't know about Basketball Monster, it was the site that you went to for NBA. And all they cared, it's like the guy didn't know what he had. We tried to contact him multiple times from RG to do like a deal with him, either to get their projections or to do some sort of marketing deal. It would have been like a 6-figure deal for them. Guy just did not care. All he cared about was his season-long fantasy stuff. And then he eventually sold the site and it just tanked.
Yeah, I mean, no one. In fact, every once in a while, out of pure gut kind of lizard brain, I will go to Basketball Monster to like check injuries because I still do have the injuries tab or pulled up or whatever. And yeah, I don't even think they have daily projections anymore. But it used to be in NBA DFS, you would just sort by points per dollar on Basketball Monster and just play those teams, or you could download the spreadsheet and then run it through a solver. Like literally, that's why. Why do you think the solver is called the solver? It's because that's the function in Excel.
That's the function, yeah.
That
We
people
had,
used to use.
You know, it became a thing where if you're trying to produce multiple lineups, that was the issue with like the solver. You know, it would generate one lineup at a time, like the best. And so if you try to generate multiple lineups, then that was the issue. And that was also like a big computing nightmare as far as like tech stuff, the back end. I mean, it was just such a pain when you had, even if we had like over 70 people on the site trying to generate multiple lineups before lock, the site was just toast. And we had a guy from Ukraine that was like our developer.
Yeah, what was his name?
His name is Vova.
Boba.
And now Vova has like this big startup. He lives in Australia and has this big startup. And is just crushing it. But I mean, those were like the pain points. And man, just things today are just way different. It's so easy to start something today. It was not easy to start something back then, even like the shows. So at first the shows were like in Google Live, and then, you know, I was like, well, I want to do something different. And so found a different streaming software that had its own technical issues. Now you just get on a website and click go live, and that's all you need. And it has all these
StreamYard. We're doing it right now. Right. I mean, if this had existed when we were doing these shows, I mean, that's the funny thing. It's so funny to think of, how did Silva ever figure out how to use Wirecast? I mean,
he didn't.
Really,
we'd have to bring him in through Zoom. You know, we were using Zoom before everybody was during the pandemic. So, I mean, there were, I remember the day that I saw RG using Wirecast. I knew it was Wirecast. It's like, oh, they got like, but we had like a good solid 6 to 9 months on them. So we had a lot of ideas that were early. We were the ones that put like the expert filters in the optimizer, because I wanted to merge kind of man with machine. Like I
don't think, by the way, I know that was always your idea. I don't think we ever actually executed that.
We did.
I'm pretty sure we didn't.
I promise. You might have been gone, but we did, because Jimino said that he saw it on FI and copied it for RG.
What do you mean I was gone? You think I don't think I ever quit Fantasy Insiders. I don't think.
Didn't you?
I'm pretty sure. Well,
no, you did. You left towards the end.
I probably did leave towards the end, because I think Laffy and I left.
Yeah.
So here's some good lore. I don't think I've ever even talked about this on this show. So Chris Neville, who's like a long time, he's kind of been on the periphery of this stuff. He's qualified for championships. He had a site. I think he employed Holka for a while. He had a site that was kind of headlined by Holka. He was working for a Canadian B2B.
Just B2B.
B2B, which is business to business.
Yeah.
Sportsbook. So basically, this company created the odds and then sold them to casinos in Europe, effectively. And their idea, Neville's idea, and the company's idea was, well, we should do this for a daily fantasy product as well. And they needed someone to head up the soccer product. And Neville knew that I watched soccer and paid attention to soccer and stuff. And so he was like, you want to be the soccer product manager? And I think I'm 23, 24 then. And not to cast aspersions on Socrdave, but he was not paying us very much money. Now, granted, it's probably more money than the site was making at the time, but we were not.
You guys were getting paid first. I had the scraps. You know, we had,
I bet,
you and Laffy and Tuttle getting paid. Cardi would get paid also.
Well, Cardi wasn't, it was just done on like a contractor basis. Like he sold the Blitz as like, or the bat as an add-on, right?
Yeah, but he also did some shows with us too.
Yeah.
So he would get paid.
So basically Neville is like, look, I'll pay you 3 times what old Socrdave's paying you.
We were
if you
paying
wanna
you
do this.
$2,000 a month.
Correct. So that is how much I was making. And then the thing is though, it's $2,000 a month. Like, oh my God, that's nothing to live on. It's not. But
back then for a college student, it was not bad.
It was not bad, but then also the games were easy back then. You just used to be able to win. Like basically it was just like you could just count on X percentage of dollars coming in from the games. Like, and I was never a particularly good player. I was okay. I had a couple good finishes and things. And then Goulet and I won. You remember that? Oh, you were there. You were there. So I win the $1 million with Adam, get my share of that. And then I was like, well, I'm chilling now. Like I've got my life roll forever, basically. Yeah. And then I left. I guess I would have left because I was already living in Kansas City by then. And I think I was already dating my now wife. So that would have been like 2017 when I left.
It was 2017 when the site shuttered, when we sold to RG. The summer of 2017 was when Ethan Gate was 2016, because that kind of destroyed a lot of the ecosystem. And I think we talked about it on the show, and one of the bonus episodes of the Swolecast. But like DraftKings almost did not exist because of all that stuff that went on. They went from paying $0 in lobbyist fees to 9 figures in lobbyist fees. So when you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars in legal and lobby fees, it's a killer. And then you don't have New York, and I'm not sure. I don't know if Texas ever closed. It closed for one of the sites. Like I think maybe FanDuel closed Texas, but you take New York out of it, and it was like a 20% cut, and then all these other sites that were shutting down DFS, and man, it was brutal. And so it crushed us. And the other thing that crushed us is that there was more competition. And FI just taught me so much, including that equity is worthless unless like you have like the equity of 0 is 0. Like 100% equity of 0 is 0. Like it does not matter. And so all these other sites were getting this infusion of outside capital coming in, and I didn't want to dilute anything because I was gonna make a mint.
You were gonna do the 4-day work week, man. We were gonna
make a mint. And so but then it was just clear we had no marketing. SEO, I wanted to do everything with the best technology. So we used something called Ember.js, like a JavaScript, which Google could not even crawl at that time. We got offered to be acquired or merge with another site, and this guy was like an SEO specialist, and so he wanted to merge, and he wanted 50% of the company, and he wanted $1 million. The first $1 million in profit was going to be his. And I was like, that we were the number 2 sites. Like FI was widely known.
And people are kind of laughing at this, maybe not laughing, but just being like, David, is that true? Or it really was the case. Like FI really was the number 2 site. David really did own the website that had the first ever optimizer for daily fantasy sports for public consumption. Like this is all true.
We had our podcast that we did. So Dan would record his podcast in the morning. So what do? We recorded our podcast the night before.
And who hosted that podcast, Dave?
I think you and Laffy did.
And I don't even know how the fuck this is actually
and Dan Strafford was a host
Dan
at first
Strafford.
too.
I have to give you a huge amount. Something you've done that has really positively influenced my life is, I don't know how you found Sammy and Nate, but me, Sammy, and Nate have been doing that Sunday night show together for longer than a decade now. I mean, that is if you've ever listened to the Guildcast and you're wondering how do these guys know each other, that is actually because of Socrdave. That is, I'll tell you, that is definitely one of your tree branch, probably your most successful tree
Yeah, we
branch,
brought
honestly.
Sammy on, and then Nate was kind of this, and there is that chemistry there. As far as I think a lot of these good shows that involve entertainment and info, you need guys from all different directions. You need the nerd, you need the guy kind of facilitating everything that you can joke on, and then you need the guy who is kind of like a hand in the dirt type of guy. And so when you have all three of those and no one takes it too seriously, and that's the key.
That's the key, man.
If you take yourself too seriously, then it just is like a huge turnoff for people. So yeah, we had a lot, and then like people. So I spent 6 figures of money that I won January of 2015 or 2016. I won 6 figures in a weekend, and
then you tried to build a DK leagues.
Well, no, that was later, but I put it all back into like development and paid off all the stuff that we need to pay off, signed a deal with Baseball Info Solutions, and then put the rest in development. And so again, BIS, which is now Sports Info Solutions, was a huge thing back then. And the guy that was in charge of that, Ben Jedlovic, he is now a huge guy in the sports analytics world. And no one was doing it. And we did that because we lost Cardi that year. So, you know, we did a lot of good stuff, but the thing that made FI the most money was Slack, the free stuff, the thing that didn't cost anything. We talk about a community. That was it. Like that was community. And it was something that people wanted. They like heard the podcast and they would want to be a part of that community. And that
was the first one.
Special. Yeah.
That was the first one. Fantasy Insider Slack. But which, by the way, I'm still in. David is not in.
Because I had to wipe my computer whenever I got the axe from RG.
So there was, before that, there was the Rotogrinders message boards. Mm-hmm. There was the FanDuel chat, the Draft Street chat, the Daily Joust chat. That was kind of how people would interface, and Twitter, obviously. Yeah. But I mean, I think Slack, we were the first ones. Did Rotogrinders never had a Slack? I'm trying to think.
They tried to do something called like Rocket Chat afterwards. I mean, that was the benefit of us being so small. You know, RG, they had to, it was just, they didn't have the capability to, like, they would have immediately gone over the free tier for Slack at that point, and then it would have been
Dave never paid for Slack, by the way.
That's what I'm saying. It was free. It still is free. It was free. So we never, so like, oh, we're going to lose like messages, you know, 10,000 messages at a time. So that was fine because it was really just about the real-time communication. I think Slack kind of fumbled the bag too on just the ability to do that for communities. Like they could have monetized that a lot better.
They super fumbled the bag because Discord was only for nerds.
Then it went to Discord. Yeah.
Yeah. But then in COVID times, they fumbled and Discord picked it up.
Yeah.
And now Discord is way bigger than Slack. I mean, I only check Slack because of the communities that I'm already in, because of the.
How many Slack groups are you in?
Like
how many Slack channels?
Yeah. There's the old FI one. There's the old Daily Roto one that still exists, which I wonder if they even know that that's still, like, I wonder if Jeremy even knows that it still exists. Then after we all got let go in various degrees from SportsGrid / Rotogrinder or / Leone made one for the refugees, basically. And then I'm in the Better Collective one because I'm still employed by Better Collective.
Yeah. Or you're still a subcontractor.
Still a subcontractor. What about you? I mean, you got to be just in the one.
I'm not in any right now.
Yeah, you're just the Fantasy Insiders one though. If you were to get all your access back,
one,
yeah.
that would
I don't think anyone
one.
really uses it anymore. It's mostly just for work. That's another thing people don't know about Dave. All right, we gotta talk about this. Your fucking love of the new.
This is the trends. This is the trend stuff.
David loves programs, like organizational programs, flow charts. Like Basecamp, Trello. I can't even Asana. I can't even keep track. What's the one that people use? Zendesk. There are just so many of these things.
Yeah.
What are you using right now, and why is this your deal?
Notion.
I've tried Notion before. I have it on my phone. I have it on my desktop. I can't. If the time, maybe this is an ADD thing of me, but the time it takes down for me to write out what I need to do, I'm like already over it. I'm like,
well, Notion for anything that requires documentation and everything else. But what's funny is that what I went back to was notes. That's just like, it's so easy to use, but anything that needs documentation or organization or Kanban stuff, like I use Notion.
But where does this all come from? Why? I mean, I can't even tell you the number of programs that we used when we. I think
you mentioned it. The problem is like, it's a shiny object thing that comes in. Yeah. Oh, they can do this. Oh, they can do this. They can do this. And so would want to, and also you're working on some part of it's like when you're working with contractors or developers or designers and they're working in something different.
Yeah.
And so like we had this issue at RG and we were trying to scale down to just Notion, but as like when we had a project, we had 3 different places where things were stored, either on the Google Cloud, and then we had Jira, which owned Asana.
Oh my God, Jira. Forgot about Jira.
Well, Jira and Asana were both a part of Atlassian. So Jira and then Notion. And so you had like projects all over the place and stuff was getting. And so then they're like, okay, let's streamline into one, because you got to have something. And at that point back in the day, there was no program that did everything. And so you use this for that, and this for the other thing, and then try to piecemeal stuff. It's just so easy right now. It is. It's so easy to get started on something. If you're listening to this, just get started. Just start.
I mean, that's great advice. It actually is. Like, I would like to tell you that is very pithy, kind of cliche mongering, but it actually is great advice. I think of this stuff more through like health and fitness and training and stuff, because that's more
consistency.
That's more I'm just more into that than I am into like entrepreneurship. I actually hate that about health and fitness. How many fucking of these, like, I bet
influencers.
Do you listen to like the Chris Williamson podcast?
No, I don't listen to any. It's going to shock you. I don't listen to any fitness pods.
No, he's not fitness. He's like a business mindset, grind set.
Oh no.
Guy.
When it comes to like mental frameworks, that stuff,
Well, he's like a big Tim Ferriss acolyte. Anyway, it's not important. Basically, I hate guys like that. I hate rich guys who have no obstacles in their life.
Yeah.
Tell me how to work harder or smart. That just tilts the shit out of me. I really hate that about the health and fitness type stuff. Like the Silicon Valleyization of Andrew Huberman and stuff like that. Like, I hate that. But it is incredibly good advice that, like, whatever, like when I got let go, It's like, what do I do? What do I do? Do I just take the shittiest full-time job that gets offered to me? Like, well, I got a couple things, and it was like, I don't really want to do that. Like, if I do get a full-time job, I want to retain way more autonomy than I got at my last job. So, dude, you know how much money not being able to do brand deals and stuff cost me at my old job?
Yeah.
Like, huge money. That sucks to not be able to do that stuff. And like, so if I do get a full-time job, like, I want to be able to keep the YouTube and everything going. I mean, even this podcast.
Have you ever thought about a full-time job outside of fantasy?
What would I even do?
That's why
I
I
mean,
didn't know if you had ever
yeah.
thought of it.
Like what? I don't even know, David. I don't even know what I'm qualified to do. Truly, I'm qualified to do very little. Like, the things that I'm qualified to do in life would be like, I could teach high school English. I could do this job that I do right now. I could probably work in marketing. I probably know enough about the internet to work in marketing. Do I want to do that? Not really. I really don't know what I'd do.
That's kind of, well, I feel like working at RG and then BC actually gave me like a legit thing on my resume.
Oh, Better Collective?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, because, and I was actually like doing like product management. And I was I was doing lots of different things, but just the fact that they gave me a title, I was like, well, I could take that and then try it. And that's why I was talking to tech recruiters.
Yeah, I have product manager on my resume technically, because I technically did manage a product.
Yeah, and really all that is just having good communication skills. And like there are levels of like technical expertise, but I feel like a lot of people would have those specific levels. And it's just the thing about like PMs that I worry about is like just AI changing things for them.
Are you, David, are you an AI doomer or an AI? Do you use ChatGPT? That feels very up your alley.
I don't use ChatGPT. I use something called Claude, which is better than ChatGPT in my opinion.
CALUDE.ai. Yeah, I've heard of that. I've never used it. I have ChatGPT. It's like I have ChatGPT Plus or
like
whatever.
I pay for Claude.
Yeah, I pay for ChatGPT.
That's how much I use it. And then instead of Google search results, I use Perplexity. And
see, this is you all over again. This is you. Just the man loves a new program.
Well,
the next time I talk to Dave, he's not going to be using Perplexity. He's going to be using something else. And the next time
I might, but I'm not using. So I'm jaded now to Google because I've seen behind the scenes of like the world of SEO. And so you're searching for like, give me the best recipe for this, or give me recipes for how to brine a turkey. And it's just people trying to game the algorithm to get listed on the first page. And then you're trying to search through these things, and it's taking you through, because time spent on page is one of the ranking algorithm factors for like Google SERPs. And so it's just a big game. It's a big game that they play. And that's what BC like specialized in. And so RG was like really the first kind of revenue company that they bought, and it was the first North American company that they bought. But just to go back to that story, they had an SEO summit whenever they bought RG. Like, this is our world. Here are best practices for Rotogrinders going forward. So they had these people fly into Nashville for 2 days. And I'll never forget every example that they gave. Guess who was number one?
Better Collective.
No. The company that offered us to merge.
Oh, sure.
Taking the $1 million. Sam Sheffrin in his company. So was number one in pretty much every example that they gave. And so that was like, got it. Could have been me. Like, but it just seems so foreign to give up half of your company to something like I was just so naive to the world of SEO and like how much value that is.
but it also changes. Like the
that's
thing is
like
if you build,
that's why Better Collective stock has gone down, is because they, you can read about this. This is not inside info, but it wasn't just the Brazil markets. It was also these third-party partnerships. BC had deals with all sorts of publishers, major newspapers, major regional newspapers, and major regional sites. And then Google, just with the snap of a finger, said, we're not going to feature those anymore on the front page. And so you're talking about millions of dollars just vanished like that. And that's what happens when you rely on a third party that has the ability to change your algorithm. Google might have fumbled the bag too, as it pertains to all this stuff, because they're the ones that had all the information. They're the ones that had all the data. And they were just really slow to adapt because of how much money the advertising model has made Google. And now people are using Claude, ChatGPT, Perplexity.
No one is using Claude, ChatGPT, or Perplexity. Google is an unquestioned behemoth, and ChatGPT is eating off of Google, right? I mean, it can't be another way that it's working.
Yeah, but there's already more and more people that are not using Google for their searches. They're using ChatGPT.
David, no one in real life is using ChatGPT. No one. Well, that's not true. That's not true. Take that back. People in your real life are using ChatGPT. 100%. What people are not doing is they're not using ChatGPT for their Google searches. They're not saying, where should I go eat from ChatGPT? What they're doing, what people are using ChatGPT for, this is based on my experience of talking to real people, not people on the internet, is for menial tasks for like work and shit. Like, do this presentation for me, write this email to my boss for me,
of course,
type stuff.
Yeah, but just you're going to see trends as far as people starting to use. When you type in something and you get what you're looking for, like that intent, we talk about like in the world of SEO, like search intent, and knowing what people are searching for. And when you are able to do that without figuring out what is real and what isn't, like these companies that are ranking for whatever you're searching for, a lot of them just are not real companies. They're just someone who's figured out, they've got big time biases on getting their stuff ranked first. So if you search for top 10 printers, you're going to get, or what printer should I buy for a small business, you're going to get all this stuff. And you click on this page and all it is going to be affiliates for Amazon or Best Buy. And so like you're not getting, once people start opening their eyes to that, then you're just like, okay, give me something legit. And that's why people search for Reddit more and more, because
that's what
unbiased stuff.
When I need to know something, I search on Reddit. Like when I want to know, or like a current event, or like, what's the best yada yada? I don't know. But I need to replace siding on my house. How should I do it? I'm searching on Reddit. I'm not searching on Google.
Yeah, and that's why the latest Google update, they had Reddit. The Reddit searches were going crazy because those were top of the list. And so yeah, if I like just knowing that Google SEO is just one big game, that just has changed my perspective on everything.
I hate SEO. The thing that we all hate the most, which is that, I want a recipe. I need real quick. I need to check the ingredients for this chili. I need to know, how do I make a pecan pie, whatever. Those crazy stories, the reason why you have to scroll 900 pages through a bunch of shit to get to it is because of SEO stuff.
Yeah.
Hate that. Why do you use, well, actually, wait, hold on. So how did you end up deciding to come back to Rotogrinders? I mean, after Fantasy Insiders closed, was DB just like,
it was,
we'd love to
it was
have
an
you?
it was an aqua hire. So I reached out to the Ballers. I reached out to Labs, who were working on a deal at that time with Churnin. and then reached out to Cal and Cam and DB, and I'd always had a good relationship with those guys. And so, they basically liked the idea, wanted to make it work, and did. And so, that time from 2017 to right up to when it was like acquired, even like a little bit past when it was acquired, we could still be kind of a startup. Those years were awesome. Just in an office, a startup office that was doing well and that had just great culture. I mean, the culture was awesome. And that's something that like will never be duplicated.
That's true. So what is your goal as JJ's number 2? Kind of what's your mission statement? How did you sell him on this as an idea?
Well, he kind of approached me as someone who JJ's doing it all.
Yeah.
And he is a true solopreneur, and he has multiple streams of revenue coming in. But he's got to manage all those streams of revenue. And he then also has to produce content for that. And it's just like, it's really tough when you have to switch your mindset from like business stuff to, okay, what happened in this game, and so he needed somebody to help with that. And also the podcast is doing great. And his thing is he does not want to take over the world. He wants to continue having a good quality of life, and keep doing what he's doing. And so my goal and what I told him is like, number one, I'm going to take care of you. Like, I'm going to make sure that you're taken care of. Like, you need someone to order you some coffee. Let me do it. You need someone to go to bat for you. Let me do it. Let me increase your quality of life, however that may be. And so primarily what that's going to be, as far as like a lot of the stuff that I did at RG was subscription stuff, and product stuff, and getting just basic stuff that we'll be able to help JJ with on the back end, on the business side, on the sponsorship side.
Are you gonna have him, keeping track of your corporate stuff on Trello and making notations of everything in Notion, so that you're all on the same?
Yeah, like we'll set up something. It'll probably be Notion, but we'll set up something. It's already a question I had for him, is like, hey, how do you want to organize documents? And so, yeah, we'll have that. But as far as, just he loves being an analyst. He loves being an analyst. He loves fantasy football. You cannot pay me enough to be an analyst. But I love the other parts of it. And to be a part of a growing business with someone who has, one of the top independent fantasy football podcasts, we can discuss what's going to happen to DFS, but it doesn't matter. Nothing is going to take away fantasy football, season-long fantasy football.
No, never. No, it's a cash cow, man. It is the gift that keeps giving.
Right. And so that was important for me, because even at RG, I was trying to get them to focus a lot like on the DFS 2.0 stuff, because, I think that's the only way they grow. Because DFS is, we talk about it like essentially being solved, but there is just not it's going to stay flat. So RG, if they can, they're always going to be like profitable, but if they're going to grow, they've got to find ways to either grow that or take over. Like if I was the head in charge of BC, I'd put Dan and those guys in charge of some other stuff that could make money, because what we always did was we did more with less. Meaning we had we still had that startup culture. We still had that stuff that there wasn't a ton of bloat. So every time that there was like layoffs at like BC, and we kind of got punished with the team, it hurt us because we didn't have that much to to lose.
To lose. Tough.
Yeah.
Tough.
It was tough, but also like if that had not have happened, I wouldn't have landed. This really is my dream job with JJ. Like getting to be a part of this. Maybe you'll see the Twitter handle being Late Round Dave. Just getting to be a part of this brand.
Well, late round Dave X.
No.
I've never been more tilted at you calling it David Kitchen X. That's another thing. You always worship at the feet of these tech lords. I mean, you do. You love these guys are geniuses to you.
Yeah, if you don't think Elon is a genius, I don't know what to tell you.
No, I don't. I don't think that the
you
guy.
Think Elon? Okay, I do want to know this.
Oh no, he probably has a genius IQ.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. Okay, here's my thing with Elon, because it's like with everybody, he's not perfect. Nobody's perfect. However, in 400 or 500 years, the history books, Elon's going to be the guy that is like the Thomas Edison. Do you believe that?
No. What is he invented?
It's not what he's invented. What is he like pioneered? So SpaceX, Tesla, these companies now owning, like he is going to be okay. And maybe you don't say Thomas Edison. What if I said like Rockefeller or someone who was okay.
I could go with Rockefeller. I think it's more likely going to be Peter Thiel, because Thiel is the one who has realized, well, and Bezos, obviously, they're the ones who've realized you need to control media. If you control the media, you control the narrative.
But no normies know who Peter Thiel is. You know who Peter Thiel is. I know who Peter
I know.
Thiel
I'm
is.
I'm way too online.
Yeah. So the normies don't. They definitely know Elon. They definitely know Jeff Bezos. But like Elon is going to be a no name if they keep on coming out with this Rebovin and like smart car stuff that he continues, like the Cybertruck. I mean, he's just rolling out all sorts of stuff. So that's all I'm saying, is that he's going to be known in the history books. We aren't. No one's going to know David Kitchen X, in 400 or 500 years.
That you're probably globally true, just because the richest man in the world for any determinate period of time will be remembered in the history books. You're probably right.
And also like SpaceX, like he is pioneering something that has huge implications on our future.
Yeah, Wiggins has tried to talk me into this too. I don't really buy
Wiggins is pretty smart.
Is he as smart as Doubt? I don't know. Ryan Doubt, genius IQ. Genius IQ. People are saying it more and more. All right, folks. We have crested past our hour. We gave David a chance to talk about Elon Musk. I need to go get some fluids because I've got the man flu right now. David needs to go take care of his sick kids. So we are going to be out of here. I will be back next week with all of you. And until then, good luck.